Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today, so let's talk about Impact Wrestling. Let's talk about an interesting story here that was recently noted on the Wrestling Observer radio show, and it refers to WWE looking after their former talent, specifically some talents that are currently employed or at least appear for Impact Wrestling. Now, when it comes to WWE looking for the health and wellness of their former WWE superstars, that's pretty well known, but WWE has reportedly covered the rehab costs for Impact Wrestling talents in the past. It was recently noted on the Wrestling Observer radio show that WWE would pay for former talents to enter rehab, even if they were currently working for a rival promotion such as Impact Wrestling or AEW, because that is the nature of the program. Now, while it's unclear if WWE has ever paid for any All Elite Wrestling talents to attend rehab, Dave Meltzer noted that WWE has paid for Impact Wrestling stars to undergo various rehab treatments. Now, of course, WWE began distributing its rehabilitation assistance offer titled, quote, the WWE Former Talent Drug and Alcohol Rehabilitation Assistance Program, to all former contracted talents back in September 2007. WWE has stated that the goal of the initiative is to help any former talent that may have substance-related dependency problem, and that goes for wrestlers who may be working for other promotions when they need help. WWE sends out an annual letter to all former talents notifying them of the program, and they also have a confidential hotline where a former talent can call and seek admittance to a certified treatment center with all costs covered by the WWE. The company also maintains regular contact with talent who have entered a rehab program or have reached out to WWE for assistance. Now, there's no word on updated numbers, but 2 years into the program, as of March 2009, 3.1% of former WWE talents had accepted rehab assistance from WWE. So, look, I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting, this story. To be honest with you, look, is it completely a massive story? No, because we've known about WWE and their program when it comes to the wellness policy for a really long time, that it extends to, of course, people that are currently under contract to WWE, but also those that were formerly under contract, etc. I have kind of contrasting feelings on the matter in that, look, is it a good thing that WWE does it? Absolutely. Absolutely. And anyone that needs the help should get the help, and the fact that they can get it and they don't have to worry about having to pay for it, and WWE is willing to pay for it and can help people cover the cost of it, it's the very, very, very least they can do, isn't it? That WWE schedule has caused a lot of problems for a lot of people, and I know that people will say ultimately it's such and such decisions that they get themselves into when it comes to all that kind of stuff, and maybe that's fair, but as I said before, it's the very least that WWE can do to help cover these issues for these talents. So again, I credit WWE for that. But also on the flip side of things, you have to know that WWE wouldn't do it. And they probably don't actually really want to do it. They're not. It's a PR thing. WWE, ever since some of the tragedies that have happened in professional wrestling, it's PR. It's absolutely PR. So that when someone is down on their luck and they're struggling with addiction or anything like that, they can say, oh, we reach out and help all these kinds of people. We help all of these people. We help all of our former WWE superstars. It's always an offer. It's an open offer. We'll cover the cost, all this kind of stuff. And they've essentially admitted that. Vince McMahon has said in numerous interviews that essentially it's kind of a PR thing, because if WWE was to be seen as someone that, ground these people into the ground completely and just burn these people out, and they did turn to all of these vices, these substances, and they weren't willing to help, how does that make WWE look? Now, again, looking at it from a positive point of view, my kind of feeling on it is, maybe it is PR, but it can really help people, and it has helped people. So you can credit absolutely WWE for that. Now, obviously, when it comes to the Impact slant on this, people will be saying, wow, why isn't Impact Wrestling? Why aren't they covering the cost, all this kind of stuff? I'm sure in the past they had when they were a bigger company, but they're a smaller company. Should they be looking after their talents? Absolutely. And I would hope that if they've got people on their roster that weren't former WWE contracted talents, that had only been with, say, Impact Wrestling, or they'd never been with WWE, one would hope that Impact Wrestling would cover the costs for those rehabilitation sessions. I don't know if they do or don't. I'm not really in the position to make those kind of allegations, but if I was an Impact Wrestling official, put it this way, and I had a talent that had these problems, and I know that WWE's offer is available, why wouldn't you say to them, look, take it? You don't have to pay for it. So it's kind of a non-story, I suppose, but it certainly is an interesting one. Again, the whole wellness policy when it comes to WWE, I think it's well-intentioned, and it does have some good merits, such as this offer to help people. But there are certainly massive faults in it still, I think. You can talk about Randy Orton and strikes that he has, and strikes worked off after a certain period of time, and certain doctor's notes on way around things. It's not perfect, but I guess in fairness to WWE, a lot of wellness policies aren't perfect either. That's in all kind of sports, whether it's USADA, etc. So it's an interesting story nevertheless, but certainly one that I think was worth discussing briefly here. Let's move on to talk about the Impact World Champion Moose, because Impact World Champion Moose is going to be appearing at the Terminus pay-per-view, or Terminus-based promotion. Now, of course, Moose, the Impact World Champion, will appear for Jonathan Gresham's new grappling-based promotion called Terminus on their January 16 debut show. Now, Gresham announced the news on social media a couple of days ago. Now, of course, Moose won the Impact World Championship at Bound for Glory in October. Terminus will lean on mat-based wrestling as the root of the company. Moose's opponent for this January 16 show is currently unknown. Like many people, very curious to see what this looks like. This new grappling-based promotion, this grappling-based show. I think we're going to see a lot more of this with the closing of Ring of Honor. We're going to see people starting their own promotions, and especially nowadays, even in the post-pandemic world, people and platforms like Fight TV certainly offer these promotions an opportunity. Like if you can get a card together, if you can get a building, if you can get talent, we'll give you a platform to stream it. And you've seen the success of a company, a promotion like GCW. They don't even have weekly television. They just have shows on Fight TV, and they just sold out the Hammerstein Ballroom. So I think we will see these promotions popping up. It's a big deal to have the Impact World Champion on there. I don't know if this means Jonathan Gresham could start appearing for Impact Wrestling, a kind of a quid pro quo kind of situation, because even though Moose, I'm sure, and this was probably part of his new deal that he signed with Impact Wrestling earlier this year, that he can take outside bookings and he can do stuff on the independent scene, he can work with New Japan Pro Wrestling, which is what he's currently doing. It's still the Impact World Champion, and I would think that Impact Wrestling still would have a say as to where their champion goes, and certainly if their champion goes over or not, because you don't want to see your champion. If you're Impact Wrestling, you still have to have priority over your champion's bookings and over your champion's creative. If you're Impact Wrestling, you don't want to see your world champion going to a Terminus and losing, especially when he's being booked strong on Impact Wrestling television. That would make no sense from a promotional point of view, would it? So I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm interested to see what Moose does in terms of a promotion that's based on grappling. Moose is hardly known to be this proficient grappler, mat wrestler. Obviously, he's a powerhouse, incredibly athletic. Some of the things he can do in the ring is crazy. And his improvement in the ring, by the way, over the course of the last 12 to 18 months has been fascinating to see. I mean, his improvement's been night and day, hence why he's the Impact World Champion now. So going into a promotion that's based on grappling, I think that's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And we'll keep a close eye. We'll keep a close eye on what he's going to be doing in Terminus. As I mentioned, once we get a confirmation on his opponent and all that kind of stuff, we'll talk about it here on the channel. But I wouldn't be surprised, and obviously Jonathan Gresham, there's going to be Jordan Grace, all that kind of stuff. There's going to be more, I think, of an Impact Wrestling feel on this show as well, with lots of talents coming over to appear on it. So keep an eye on that one. It's going to be fascinating to see, no doubt. Finally, what I want to talk about is Impact Wrestling and the NWA. Who would have thought? Mickie James, she has just broken down any issues there ever once was between the National Wrestling Alliance and Impact Wrestling, whether it's appearing at NWA Empower or having NWA stars appear on Impact Wrestling and vice versa. We have a really interesting match announced for the Hard Times 2 pay-per-view on Saturday, December 4th, because an AEW star in Kira Hogan, who is signed to AEW, but is a former Impact Wrestling talent. She was a former Impact Wrestling star that was with the company as of this summer. Her contract expired, she left, she went to AEW, but now she's going to be appearing on an NWA show and challenging for the Impact Knockouts Championship. How crazy is that? because the Impact Wrestling Knockouts Championship match is now official for the NWA Hard Times 2 pay-per-view. It was announced yesterday that Mickie James will defend the Impact Knockouts title against Kiera Hogan, the AEW star Kiera Hogan, at the pay-per-view. The NWA tweeted, quote, "Just announced Saturday, December 4 at Hard Times 2, Impact Knockout champion Mickie James defending her title against AEW's Kiera Hogan. This makes 8 multi-company title matches in one night." Now, James, of course, captured the championship at Bound for Glory on October 23rd, defeating Deonna Purrazzo. Since then, she's retained over Mercedes Martinez and Madison Rayne. Now, Hogan, of course, as I mentioned, left Impact Wrestling in July of this year and debuted for AEW in mid-August. The NWA Hard Times 2 pay-per-view will air live on Fight TV at 8 p.m. Eastern on Saturday, December 4 from GPB Studios in Atlanta, Georgia. Interesting. It's just fascinating, isn't it? I think there's real sort of substance you can get into there, isn't there? Massive substance you can get into there. Kiera Hogan's spoken about this as well, that she's a bit frustrated with her position in AEW because she's not on many Dynamites. Certainly, she might appear on Dark and Dark Elevation, maybe on a Rampage. She was on the Rampage, wasn't she, from the United Center. When Punk debuted, she lost to Jade Cargill. But that's why I said I wasn't sure if AEW was necessarily the right move for her, because even though it's maybe not the best booked division, AEW, there's still a lot of talent in there, and there just isn't a lot of TV time. There should be way more, and she should be on television way more, but she's not going to get those opportunities. The NWA is a good fit for her. She's been doing NWA stuff since she left Impact Wrestling, so it's no surprise. But the idea of an AEW star versus Mickie James isn't really an anything star. I don't know if she signed a contract with Impact Wrestling. I don't think she signed one with the NWA. Of course, she's always going to be associated with the NWA because of her husband, and obviously because of the producing she's done for that promotion. So the fact that you've got an AEW star who's a former Impact Wrestling star challenging for an Impact Championship on an NWA show shows a lot about Impact Wrestling's willingness to work with all of these promotions, and specifically an NWA show. As Billy Corgan said earlier this year, he thought he would never work with Impact Wrestling again. There was a lot of heat, not just because of his time there as the president, the whole Game of Thrones stuff, and Dixie Carter, and being handed the company, but then it wasn't actually legal in the state of Tennessee, even though a Tennessee lawyer did it, and all that kind of stuff, and the litigation, all that kind of stuff that happened. He never thought he was going to work with them. And then on top of that, once he founded the NWA, he had some issues with Impact Wrestling. He felt stealing talent from them and all this kind of stuff. He thought it was done. And now we've got to a point where Impact Wrestling and the NWA are working with each other all the time. There's talent going back and forth. There's, of course, Mickie James breaking down those barriers in producing the NWA Empower show, and now being the Knockouts champion, defending the Knockouts championship on the NWA show. Of course, it happened at Empower as well with Deonna Purrazzo. So credit to Mickie James and credit to these companies working together. I think at this point, the NWA needs Impact Wrestling more than Impact Wrestling needs the NWA, to be honest with you. But I think it's fascinating to see. Kiera Hogan's not going to win. She's not going to win the Knockouts championship, but it would be fascinating if she did, wouldn't it? To have this AEW contracted talent win the Knockouts championship, but she's a former Impact star. She comes back. I just think of the storyline there, and I think that could work. That would be good television, wouldn't it? I'm not even contracted to you guys anymore. I left because I didn't think I was respected here. I left, and now I've got your title, and she could hold it to ransom. That could be a great storyline. Now, again, don't think that's going to happen. Mickie James will retain, and I think eventually she'll drop the title back to Deonna Purrazzo. But nevertheless, I think it's an exciting match, and I'm interested to see where they go with it. I think there is scope to do something special here. Whether or not they do it, time will tell. But look, guys, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of these Impact Wrestling news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about Impact Wrestling, AEW, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Go to the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or having come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.